Good morning, Year 4. I hope you're all okay and I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend. We're going to begin our reading sessions, as always, this week by thinking back to Friday's lesson and what we were reading in Friday's lesson. Now, that was a few days ago now, so hopefully with these retrieval questions, it will jog your memory a little bit. So what I would like you to do is spend a couple of moments just thinking about the following 5 questions. So pause the video where you are now, please, and have a think about the following questions. Off you go. Okay, so we know that they wanted to make a spark for the fire because they wanted to have some food. They wanted to cook the grubs and the cocoa beans to make a chocolate pancake, but we know it wouldn't have tasted as nice as a chocolate pancake. So what 2 things do you remember that they needed to make a spark for the fire? That's right, they needed steel. And they also needed flints because we know that flints were the sharp grey type rock that would make it easy to cut into things and maybe start a fire. Fantastic. Next one then, what item of Fred's did they want to use to make the spark? Well, we're thinking of something here. We're thinking of a noun. So something of Fred's that would be useful for making a spark. Fred had a watch, didn't he? And that watch was made of steel. And they wanted to use that steel to make the spark for the fire because they didn't know where else to get the steel from. But did Fred want to use this item? And why? No, he didn't want them to use the item, did he? If we remember closely, Fred's father got him this watch, and it was very special to him because Fred's father didn't usually go out and actively buy him presents himself. He got his assistant or secretary to buy him these presents in Harrods with Fred. Now, this watch was one of the only things that his father had actually bought him himself, and that's what made it really special to him. But there was something else that was engraved in the watch. Do you remember what it was? Well done. It was the initials of Fred, and that made it really personal to him, didn't it? Okay, super. Next one then. We know that they wanted to mark a path to the lavatory. The lavatory, we know, is the toilet, and they needed to mark a path. Why? Well, we know they wanted to have the lavatory in the trees quite away from where they were staying in the den. So for that to happen, they needed to mark a path so they knew that they wouldn't get lost and they'd know they'd find their way back. Because in a forest, it all looks the same, doesn't it? So if they mark a path, they know that they can get back safely. Fantastic. Finally then, what did Lila call the lavatory which made all of the children laugh? Because we know right at the end of the previous chapter that she made all of the children laugh. What did she say? That's right, she said she called the lavatory the lava tree. And why do you think she called it the lava tree? Yes, because they made a toilet out of a tree, didn't they? So it made everyone laugh. And I don't know about you, Year 4, but that really made me smile when I was reading that in the book because I realised, they've actually probably forgotten about how scared they are to be in a forest on their own. They probably forgot how nervous they are and how worried they are. For a second, they've just relaxed and taken in some humour and had a bit of a joke around, and that really made me smile. Okay. Today's lesson, we are going to go back to our retrieval. So we are going to be retrieving information from a text. Now I know from your fantastic work that you've been sending it in that you've shown me that you are fantastic at retrieving information. So what we're going to do today, we are going to look at one specific question type. When someone is asking you to try and find out if you can retrieve information, we're going to make sure that we can answer that type of question perfectly, okay? So we're going to have a real good practice at that type of question today. And as always, you have your success criteria so you can know if you're using the right thing to be able to have success in this lesson. So you will be able to use scanning and skimming to find information and work out a gist of a text. What's the text saying? You'll be identifying keywords in a question, thinking carefully about what that question is asking, thinking of possible answers before checking the text, okay? Now, we do have 2 vocabulary words today. The first one is this word due. Due is a noun, it's a thing, and it only has 1 syllable. Due, as you can see in the photo here, are tiny drops of water that form on cool surfaces, particularly at night when the atmospheric vapour condenses. So it's kind of a bit like condensation, like we're talking about in geography with the water cycle. And so dew is little droplets of water that land on the surfaces. So you can see here that they're droplets of water, not necessarily rain, not rain from the clouds, but just that's formed from the natural air, okay, when the air, when things condense, okay. In the book, it's quoted in the sentence, "They were sitting in the clearing in the morning sun, clammy with sleep and dew." So obviously this dew is in the air, it's forming on surfaces, so they are just around all of this dew. They're feeling quite clammy, sticky, and the dew is everywhere. Another way you could use the word is saying the grass was wet with dew. Synonyms, so words that mean the same or similar to dew, condensation and water droplets. And the antonym, so a near opposite word for dew, would be dryness, because if it's not water and it's not wet, it's often dry, isn't it? But it's not a complete antonym, all right? The second word we're going to be introduced to today is this word exasperated. And this exasperated word is an adjective. It has 5 syllables, exasperated, okay? And this word means when someone is exasperated, it means they are intensely irritated, full of lots of frustration, quite angry. And you can see a picture of here, this man pulling his hair, thinking, oh, I'm getting so angry, I am exasperated, I'm getting a bit angry. He has an exasperated expression, full of anger, full of frustration, but we don't know why. In the book, it's quoted, "There's nothing to say, only adults can make rafts," said Fred, exasperated. So he clearly, we're going to find out in this book, he wants to build a raft, and he's getting a bit frustrated that no one wants to build it too. Some words that mean the same or similar: infuriated, angered, annoyed, whereas antonyms could be delighted or pleased, okay, positive. Okay, we're going to start a new chapter today about the raft, so I'm going to start reading to you. There is 1 page that you'll need to read on your own today, as we won't have time to get through it, okay? The raft. It was Fred's idea to build a raft. He knew that it wasn't, by any stretch of the imagination, what Con would call a reasonable risk, but following the river was the only way he could think of to get home. The river moved fast, and the splash and spit and spray, that's our alliteration, of it sounded like a summons through the jungle. Wow, that was a lot of alliteration there. Did you notice what sound it was? It was the S sound, well done. A raft, said Lila. From what? They were sitting in the clearing in the morning sun, clammy with sleep and dew. They'd slept inside the den, taking shifts to watch the fire. Do you remember why they needed to watch the fire? Right, so it wouldn't be put out. They keep them nice and warm and be able to cook their food on it, the nice, really yummy grubs that I'm sure they'd enjoyed so much. It had not been a good night. It had grown cold, and Max's feet, which begun the night in their proper place, had ended up in Fred's left ear. Fred's brain had chewed up the fears he had been pushing aside during the day and spat them back at him while he slept. He'd woken screaming at doors. He was quite distressed. We'll make it from wood, said Fred. He swept up some of the dew from the grass around him and rubbed his face with it. There's a lot of wood available. Do you know how? I've read a lot of books about it, he said. In the books, explorers cascaded, so they went down the rivers, shouting things like tally-ho! But he assumed that was not compulsory, so they didn't have to shout that. And he'd read in an article on the front page of the Times about one man, Christopher McLaren, who had lived for months on a raft, eating fish and drinking river water. He had made it sound easy. Why do we need a raft? Said Con. It would get us out of here. To England? She asked. To Manaus, and there would be people there who will get us home. On a raft. To Manaus, said Con. Her voice was thick with disbelief. People cross the Atlantic Ocean on rafts, said Fred. They were adults. There's nothing that says only adults can make rafts, said Fred, exasperated. So he's getting quite annoyed at Con. Always being very negative, isn't she? You don't need a licence. Fred's right. We should try, said Lila. I think it's a good idea. I knew you'd say that, said Con. I knew you'd agree with him. But, Lila looked bewildered. Don't you want to go home? Don't you want to see your mama? Of course I do, Con spat. Fred looked down at the floor. He'd heard Con crying in the night, calling for help in her sleep. But if we just wait here, said Lila, we'll wait until we die. People will be looking for us. We should just stay here and they'll come, said Con. Lila shook her head. The jungle is very big and we're small. I'm not, said Max promptly. But is he small though? He is quite small. You're small compared to 1,000 miles of rainforest, Max. We can send up smoke signals, said Con. We already have some fire. Let's use it. We'd have to burn down half the jungle to make one big enough to reach that high, said Lila. And a fire that big would kill us instead of getting us rescued, added Fred. Con was going red. Why do you think she might be going red? Might be a bit of embarrassment, might be a little bit of anger. I don't want to, all right? I really, really don't want to get on a raft and risk my life because someone else thinks it's a good idea. It might not be a good idea, said Lila, but it's the only one we've got. Fred's skin was beginning to ache and his stomach to clench. It always did when people argued. He stood up. Okay. So this page you're going to read yourself. Again, either pause the video now and read it, or you can read it in your own time during the resource section because it's all in your resources for you, okay? Pause the video now if you're going to do that, please. Okay, so we are reminding ourselves about retrieval today. So we are going to be getting help from Rex Retriever because Rex Retriever helps us to retrieve and record information or identify key details from both fiction and non-fiction. So books that are true and books that aren't true, okay? So it means that he's going to help you to find key pieces of information within the text that you are reading. Because we know that when we are retrieving information for a text, we're just looking for a specific answer. Whereas with inference, it's asking you to really think, what do they mean by that? It doesn't give you a specific answer. But retrieval questions always give you an answer. So the answer you're looking for is always in the text. You just have to find it and try and retrieve it, okay? So we know that there are lots of types of Rex Retriever questions. Those retrieval questions that are used when someone is trying to check that you understand a text. So you could have some tick questions where it asks you a question and maybe asks you to tick 3 boxes that it applies to. It might ask you to write 2 different answers when it asks you a question. You might have a matching activity. And you might have maybe another tick box with true or false. So it's asking you, giving you a statement, saying tick whether it's true or false. It might have a fill a gap table for you. And it might just give you a question with some multi-choice, a bit like the first one here, but where it maybe only asks you to do one answer. Now, today we are going to be focusing on the ticket question. So this is a question where it will give you a statement, will ask you to look at a page number, and your job is to either tick as many as they're asking you, which are the correct answer. So this one here only asks you to tick 1 box, similarly with this one, whereas this one asks you to tick 3. So be careful when you have a ticket question. Always check how many answers the question is asking for, because if you only tick 1 and it's asking you to tick 3, you will not get all the marks that are available. And my job is to help you be the best detectives that you can be, so you can make sure that you're getting the full marks, okay? All right, we're going to have a look at an example in part 2 of the reading session, okay, year 4? So I will see you in our part 2 of this lesson.